My name's Doug. This is session 2, and if you're here, thank you. Last week we did beach sands, and we analyzed them. And this week you're going to learn a little bit more about geology than you ever thought you would. All right, and I hate lectures, so this is sprinkled with stories. All right? Any questions? Right, just like last week. Any questions from last week? Any answers from last week? Ask me a question.
Do you have a favorite beach?
That's a damn good question. I think Siesta Key in Florida, the sugar sands. But Conopala Beach in Hawaii, where we got the black obsidian sands, that's also pretty damn good. Yeah. Those are favorites.
Do beaches with a certain, like with a larger wave size versus an smaller average wave size, is there a pattern in like what you see in the sand, like bigger waves, do they have finer sand or vice versa?
I guess we're gonna find a little bit about that, right? And also we're gonna look at sands in the Caribbean and see how that works. So yeah, so you have a question about that, about sand, sediment size and wave size, are they correlated? Sometimes. Yep, cool. All right,
Another question.
yeah.
What about commercial use of sands that are mined from beaches?
So there's a real issue there. So the beach nourishment, I don't have a lot of beach nourishment stories here, but one of the ones that I did in Florida, they had barges offshore and they mined the sands there and put it onto the beach. What they did was they made the area directly offshore deeper. When they did that, the waves were able to come further and closer to shore because they are waves. What happens is theoretically they don't hit bottom, but I don't know why they say that, because they hit bottom and that's when you see them rear up and break, right? So the waves get slowed down, right? Those are deep water waves, right? And what you've seen offshore, you can see waves breaking offshore and then not, and then they break onshore, right? So when they mine the sands, the bigger waves came closer and it made the erosion worse. So what sand they brought on went back off. So when they have a cost benefit ratio for the beach and they say, oh, it'll last 7 years, when they did that, it was on the order of months. Yeah. Welcome to the Army Corps of Engineers.
Well,
Yes.
they study that stuff too.
That's my
But
job.
they didn't take this course.
So, yeah, we'll get to that. It's actually quite comical. I work for the Corps of Engineers and they gave me jobs to do, and I'll give you the story of one that really is my favorite. All right, we'll start with sedimentology. High energy or low energy? High. No, is this high energy or low energy? Yeah, it's high energy. And sediments that are on the rocks are just gonna get washed off by the power of the water, right? Okay, low energy. Why do you say that?
Well, probably because there's vegetation there to slow the water down.
So there's vegetation there, so any sediments within the vegetation, what do the sediments do?
So,
It drops out. It's baffling.
It's also shallower water, you can see by the water grasses.
Exactly right. But it's shallow, the tide's out. Right? Good. All right? High energy or low energy?
Both.
All right, so out here, do you see waves? You don't. Those waves are crashing on these rocks. So that's high energy, but what about behind the rocks? Low energy? So the low. Good. So you're seeing a monocle. But these rocks are protected, right?
both.
So out here is the full reef. This is in Belize. So the waves break here and this is the lagoon. I say lagoon because my professor was Norwegian. So in the lagoon, you can tell it's low energy. How can you tell that straight off?
Mangroves?
Yeah, these are just the saplings, the new ones coming up. So you know those seeds settle and are growing. See how easy this is? This is the way I can do it.
In a contract situation, let's say you're working with the Corps of Engineers, do you measure the rate of erosion?
You can, there are many ways to do that. Yep. What's the bottom like of this lake?
Say again?
Is it low energy, high energy or low energy? It's low energy and these are all, this is all ice. And the bottom of this lake is a fine clay, which means that the water is very quiescent, very quiet. And so fine sediments can rain down, right? Very low energy. This is 4 days up the Congo River by boat. High energy or low energy?
Probably high, because it's flowing.
Well, it's a river, so
It's a stronger.
Rate of flow?
don't know. It's hard to tell from this though, isn't it? Okay.
Wow.
Okay, I'm 4 days up the Congo River. And these are on the shoreline.
That's a strong river.
Okay, here's my question. Rounded or spherical? Or both?
Or spherical.
There's some around it,
They're also rounded,
yeah.
right? All right. This is the shoreline. We'll get to that in a second. Here's the shoreline. Here's the boulders. What are the boulders made of?
They look like they're,
Volcanic?
oh my God, they're conglomerates. From a distance, I thought they were volcanic.
Okay, see, this is, I'm gonna go back out. See this here?
Oh,
Okay.
That's what we're looking at.
it looks like it's a conglomerate to me.
Okay, it's a breccia. A breccia, a conglomerate has rounded clasts, right? A breccia has angular, right?
Okay.
A breccia is volcanic. All right, so I'm gonna go back. Look at these boulders. They're made of volcanic material, right?
That sounds right.
Right, you were there. Well, okay, now look.
Big surprise.
This is where my brain went, boom. Look at these things. This is the shoreline. No mountains. Where did the boulders come from?
Ice Age.
They came from a mountain that's not there anymore.
It eroded.
Wow,
These are several 100 million years old.
wow.
The mountains were there. So where did these boulders come from?
Upstream.
No, up the hill.
But definitely.
These were not transported by the river.
Oh,
These were busted from the mountain, rolled down the hill. As it rolled down the hill, it became spherical and became deposited on the bank. So look at this as a geologist. We're looking at history goes back several 100 million years. This is in Africa. Where are the mountains in Africa? They don't exist. Not here.
Does subduction contribute to that, or is it strictly erosion?
Subduction creates the volcanoes.
True.
All right, but in this case here, the mountains were there, volcanic material created the breccia. Then they busted off the mountains and traveled down. That's why you don't see the mountains anymore. You know why you don't see the mountains anymore? Because they're not there. All right, to me, this is cool.
It is.
All right, this is up in Alaska. And here's my question. You can see the meander of this river and you see these, they look like cobbles. They are. How high was the flow? And how do you know?
Bottom of that tree's vegetation.
Look where the tree is pruned to. That's how high the water was at one point. And these cobbles are salting, bouncing and causing that. You're coastal detectives now. You're looking at stuff and you're figuring out why it's the way it is. Okay, Gulf of Mexico, I'm about 120 miles offshore and about 2,000 feet of water. Here's the oil rig, and here are the supply ships on either side. This is sunset. What's the bottom look like?
Sand.
High energy to low energy at the bottom.
Well,
Wow.
So we had this, you know what a piston core is? So this is a coring device with about a ton of material on it and about a 20-foot pipe. And we're dropping this down onto the sea floor. And we bring it back up and the core goes into the lap I was in charge of 4 geologists. We were looking for oil in the bottom. And if the oil is at the surface, then it's easier to drill to. Right, so Frank here is doing the core descriptions, and look what he finds. He finds oil is smelled like diesel. It's naturally occurring. Clay, low energy, settles, and this is biological material, that's marsh material that has created the oils. Oils are from decayed marsh. High energy or low energy?
Both.
Excellent, Bob. So here's the reef. This area here is the lagoon, right? So high energy, low energy, okay? The material inside of here, is it biologic or we call it terrigenous?
Biologic.
Right, so the bulk of the area behind the coral is biogenic. All the sediments, right, are carbonates. Have you guys been to the Caribbean and seen these sea urchins, diadema? You don't want to step on them because their spines, they have a little hook on them, which is essentially where Velcro was thought about. It's called pedestal. How did it form?
Windblown sand.
Windblown sand. Okay, there's a little more to that, isn't it? How come down here and not up here?
Because it only sulfates so high off the,
It's too heavy. It can't go up here. It's only down here. So it's carving this rock out.
the larger sediments are.
The sands are sandblasting this part, and the sands can't go higher. So that's what happens.
Where's that?
It's farther in the western deserts. Must be southwest. And of course, so the samples I were playing with last week, this is my hutch with my 150 samples in it. All right. Is this a beach? Okay. Is this a beach? All right, we're done. Is this a beach?
Yep.
Cobble.
Cobble, boulder, cobble, gravel, sand, silt, clay. Right?
Right. A shingle,
A beach.
Yeah,
What is a beach?
it's a shore.
It's an interaction between water and land.
Waves and land that creates sediment.
Right.
And the sediment doesn't have to be sands. Right? This is hard to put your beach towel on,
But it's a beach.
but it's a beach.
Yeah.
Right? Excellent. Clear? Is this a beach?
I say no.
I'd say no.
I don't
There's
see
no
any
sand
sediment.
deposits.
It's a rocky shoreline.
Yeah.
All right. So you're looking at Barrow, Alaska. All right, Barrow, Alaska is so far north it's south. Right, it's the tip of Alaska. And it looks like it's snow. It is. And this looks like it's ice. It is. And this is ice all the way up here. September 7th, 1985. And I was brought here, I didn't have to go actually, because the question was, their beach is eroding, right? And the beach is eroding, and this is a problem because here's First Street, right? And what they have below First Street is they call it their Thermidor, which I wish they would name it something different because it's a heated corridor where all their sewage goes, right? Here's their Doug, we have a problem. The scarp here is eroding, and we're afraid that it's going to hit First Street. If it hits First Street, our $3 billion infrastructure for 3,000 people is going to be lost. Why is the beach eroding? Why do beaches erode? They erode essentially because of waves. We'll talk about that, right? Okay, here's my question to them. You have ice out, which is free water. Maximum is now it's up to 60 days out of the year. Where the frig are the waves coming from? If you don't have water, wind to blow, how are the waves getting to the beach? Why is it eroding? When did you first start noticing this problem? So I brought up my historic maps. And in my historic maps, all of a sudden, you know what showed up? The runway. What's the runway made out of? Concrete. How do you get concrete in Barrow, Alaska? You didn't fly it in. You didn't boat it in. Concrete requires sand. Wait a second, hold on. Where'd you get the sand from? Well, where's the only place in Barrow, Alaska where the sand is available for
Under
mining?
the ice.
No, the beach.
Beach.
They brought front end loaders and dump trucks out on the beach and they dug the cliff out till it was below the water line. So when high tide came up, the water came up to the permafrost cliffs and what happens with your drink with water in it? It melts the ice. Duh. Right, so, hi guys, I just canceled my trip to Alaska because I know why the beach eroded. It's your fault. Huh, what do you think we should do? I said, I think you should take the airport apart and put the rubble down there. Well, we can't do that. I said, I don't think you guys need me anymore.
Unintended consequences. Unintended consequences.
Predictable. Why didn't you call the Corps of Engineers afterwards? Why don't you have geologists design it and then we wouldn't be having this problem? You know what the answer was? But we probably wouldn't have a runway if we had asked you. All right, so when you guys go to the beach, you're gonna see the beach has different parts. And this is where going to the beach is going to become a problem for you. Because you're gonna hear this in your head. Now, I have students from 30 years ago who I get notes from saying, all right, Doug, I thought about you yesterday because, all right, so you're gonna have a dune scarf, the berm, right? And then you run off the berm crest onto the beach face. The beach face is defined by high tide and low tide. And then when here's what happens. You put your towel on the beach and you run and go in the water, right? And you run down, this is where you trip, right? And you run down the beach slate and then you get to the bottom and all of a sudden it flattens out, right? And you run out into the water. And as you're running out in the water, tell me you've had this experience. It doesn't get deeper. All of a sudden it gets shallower.
Sandbar.
Right, or you trip over this slip face, right? Okay, this is called the low tide terrace. And on the low tide terrace, there's a ridge and runoff system. Got it? And Bob, when you go to the beach next week, you're gonna go, damn. All right. This is a high profile beach and here's the sand face, all right? And the beach isn't eroding. What the waves do in a high profile beach, it goes up here, grabs the sand and brings it back down to the beach, right? And you see this line of seaweed here, that's where the waves have gone up to that point and deposited that there. Right?
Rat climb.
Yeah, rack
Could you go back for a second and define the term littoral? It's not something,
Littoral is the processes that occur within the tidal realm of a shoreline. So between low tide and high tide. And high tide is different depending on the weather. It's not nearly astronomical. It's also meteorological if you have a storm. Okay? Okay, so now we have to define a beach face. Love that. Okay, the beach face is the part of the beach that is the range of between low tide and high tide. Okay? All right, this is where Bob is gonna, here's what happened. Yeah.
Hey, welcome to the beach here in Delaware, Cape Henlopen State Park. And what I'm looking at right now are the dunes. You notice the grass.
All right, so I went to the beach last Saturday and I used my phone and took a video. Because what I usually do is take students to the beach and we walk the beach and you guys get annoyed because I go, oh, look at this. So what do you see? We're gonna look at dunes, fencing, copice mounts. All right, keep going.
And they asked me about how the grasses help to grow the dunes. In fact, asked me a question, what's a copice mount? So we're coming
All right.
down on the
So where have you seen before where vegetation helps settle sediments? High energy or low energy?
Low end,
Okay, what did you see?
the mangroves.
Right, mangroves or the marsh grasses, right? So when you're walking down on a dune and you see these grasses, how is that helping? So dunes started, they're called copice mounts. COPPICE, is that a good word for friends? Words with friends? Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, copice mounts. All right, and the grasses, what you get is you get a deposit of sand and grasses start coming up. And how does that perpetuate the dune growth?
The roots.
The roots hold it. The winds blow and push the sands, and what do the leaves do?
Grab the sand.
Yeah, all right. Copice mounds are the beginnings of the sand dunes.
walkway. We're coming down to the beach. And it's a fine beach day. And what I'm going to ask you is here, ask you questions. as
Can
we
you
go.
raise the volume? I can't hear it.
Volume is all the way up.
We've got, on the controller, the volume is all the way to max.
I will fill it in. Can you hear me? Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, so right here, see how dry that sand is? What part of the beach is that? Berm. And what you see here, what we'll start looking at, see the darkened area here that's wet?
Yeah.
So here's the beach face, but what's happened is the last high tide, the waves busted over the top, and there's a little runnel here that's filling in with water. All right, so this is part of the beach face, and of course, the ocean. So
Is you see waves breaking, and the question
No, I don't
is,
see
why
break.
do waves break? And do the waves tell us something about what's offshore? And sometimes you can see that the waves, you have two sets of waves. One that break offshore and one that break on the beach. Why is that? Okay, I'm going to stop now and walk to the right and then down the beach. Stand by.
okay, next.
Okay, can we increase the volume on the laptop? Stand by, we're gonna raise the volume on the, on this laptop.
I think it would be on your laptop, maybe where the recording is, to
Stand by.
increase the volume there.
Okay, can I minimize this safely,
Minimize what the,
the PowerPoint?
um,
I'm gonna get out of it.
no, you shouldn't have to get out of the PowerPoint. It should be at the bottom of on the computer itself. You know where the volume level is? That's the only thing I can think of that would help.
I don't have a dashboard here.
But
Oh, I see, on the computer itself?
yes,
Stand by. Whoops, no, we're changing slides.
Okay.
I see Doug's having fun flipping through slides.
It's not me.
Oh, it's not? Oh dear.
Yeah, that's not really.
Over by the Windows key.
Windows key.
See that line to the left of it? You can hold that. and,
So Doug, did you say that you could kind of repeat what you were saying in the video? And maybe that would just be what's needed.
Yeah, when it's paused, I will be going over things, yes.
We're
Okay,
About 95% volume on the laptop now.
Okay, so it's probably recorded that way, so that's fine. If Doug goes back through it,
Okay,
One more. One more.
there.
Hey, well,
Let's play.
play it.
Yep.
all right, it's good there's nobody around so I can do this without embarrassing somebody. But notice these fences, what are they, and how do they help grow the beach?
What are these fences here? Why are they putting them? Keep people out? Yeah, well, what else? To do what else?
The sand.
They act like the plants and they do the baffling and you can see how the sand is collected behind it.
Right. And you have to do that so the plants will grow
Yeah, well,
back
look,
on.
I didn't know, so I thought, oh, look, I didn't notice it before. You see these little sand ripples here? How are they formed?
Coming through the slats.
Wind through the.
Yeah, the wind is coming in this direction.
Eroding that.
Well, the finer sands are up here, right? It's getting coarser to go that way. So the finer up here, and they're the easiest to move by wind. It's called alien.
Does the fence prevent the sand on the ocean side from going up onto the dune?
Yeah, it does.
And is that something that you want to prevent?
Well, you can see how the sand is built up on the backside here,
Right.
and it's doing exactly what they want it to do. You can also see that a lot of the fence posts are gone. All right, so it's not as effective as it could. All right, who's barking and why?
See, runoff that goes across the beach. Is that always, the tide level?
No, it isn't. We'll get to that. See what
Do
happens.
they allow dogs on this beach?
They do. I have a funny story about, so I was there last day with this, and I brought Max with me, and we were down, there was nobody around, and walked off the beach, and there was a family with a little tent, and Max is really well behaved, but he saw the tent and he took off. And there was the father was in the tent taking a nap. Right in the tent and lay down right next to him. It's a great idea.
How long did it take for that fence to erode to that degree from the time it was new?
So, again, the fence did its job in collecting sand on this side.
Right.
And now it's not doing its job.
Is that like last year's fence or is
I
it
don't know how-
10 years?
No, I have no idea how long.
Sometimes it
Usually
depends on how
5.
many people are messing with it too.
Well,
You get 5 years out of it.
Yes.
Yeah, 5 years at best.
Before it starts to really rust
Yeah.
and just fall apart.
Yeah.
Okay.
Bob, can you do play for me, please? Okay.
So now that we're gonna walk off this walkway and we're gonna walk onto the berm,
Keep going.
which is the highest part of the beach, and walking down the berm, and the berm
Careful.
is the place where you normally put your beach towel because it's dry. And now we're coming down and look at this.
So here's the berm crest, here's behind it, and see these piles of sand? They are at the angle of repose. And this is all wet in here, so the waves are coming over the berm, into this runnel, and moving that way down the beach.
Is that a prognostication of which way the beach is migrating?
Somewhat, yes. Longshore sediment transport, literal drift. All right,
Oh, look at this. You see this stuff here, this flotsam and jetsam? That's called the last high tide swash. That's where the highest part that the waves have come, and then they're going back down.
why? Why is that stuff there? It's the last high tide swash. This is critical.
Cause it picks it up. It's light enough to float.
It's light enough to float, but it's all on a line up here.
Right.
So tell me the process. The wave comes up the beach. Why does it leave that stuff there?
There's no energy when it hits the top.
There's no energy to go back.
Yeah.
Where does the energy go? Where does the water go?
Back.
Gravity pulls it back.
And down.
And
Sinks.
Bob,
sinks into the sand.
Percolation. Right?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
The wave comes up the beach. So when you're at the base of the beach, wave comes up, but very little of that water goes back down. How come?
Absorbed
Into the sand.
It gets absorbed vertically into the sand.
That function of the density of the particles?
Talk to me. It's not about the density of the particles, it's about the sorting and the size. If it's all gravel, what do you think about the percolation?
Very quickly.
Fast. If it's sand,
Medium.
all right, silt,
Oh, it might not.
not likely a beach, right? So depending on the percolation, as the wave comes up the beach, the water goes down and very little goes back. Why do beaches erode?
High energy.
Why do beaches erode?
Sediment's leaving.
Why is sediment, what
As
is
the
the
water
process?
recedes, it takes it with it.
Okay, you guys are getting close. Now you get,
Less percolation.
okay,
Say again?
less percolation. So waves, beaches eroding are depending on percolation. Percolation requires water. Where does the water come from?
The ocean or the source.
waves.
The waves, yeah.
Right? And percolation is dependent on boulder, couple gravel, sand, silt, clay,
Yeah.
right?
So the finer the sand, the less chance of erosion.
Finer the sand, the less chance of percolation, the more chance of erosion.
Right, sand is more likely to erode.
Oh,
than
right,
soil.
right.
All right. Keep going.
Is there any under,
You mean,
Here-
well, when it percolates down into the.
we'll get to that.
It still has to go.
Hold on.
somewhere.
That's exactly right. We're gonna get to that.
Look at this low point here, right? This is low point with heavy minerals, and look at this. These are bed forms that are
Bed forms are ripples, right? And you can see the Stawson Lee, and these are going in that direction, parallel to the beach, right?
But the ripples are perpendicular to the shoreline,
The
right?
crests are perpendicular to the shoreline.
Yeah.
But the slit faces are the direction of the moving are in that direction. What? The beach, they're going that way.
So those slit faces and that little scarp that you showed a little bit back ago were the, kind of at the, closer to the ridge of that pond. You said it has the max angle of repose. Is that kind of like what a dune's trying to do on the other side of the beach?
Exactly.
Just dry.
Yep. That's exactly right.
I didn't follow that.
So, we have a couple things going here, and we're looking at the angle of repose, right? We're looking at the slit faces, so,
Yep,
though, that's the direction that the sediment's gonna be moving.
right.
And we have the dunes, which if, wherever you're at a dune, you can see the slit face is gonna be about 28 to 30 degrees. And that's the direction that that dune is moving.
going in, hold on, you can't see my finger. They're going to left, from left to right.
We just went
Ask me
to
why that is. All right, I'm gonna move down here and look at this.
Seagull tracks.
Here's a pile of sand, right? And this sand is being pushed. Look how coarse it is. Look, compare it to the other part of the beach. It's coarse for a reason. Ask me.
Well, it's coarser.
All right, so what you have there is the waves push the sand up the beach face, over the edge, because on the land where that, you have that channel where the water's going down. And the coarse sands are right here. Where are the fine sands? They're in that trench, they're being transported down. It's harder to transport the coarser stuff.
I'm walking down and look at these tons of darker sediment that's
Heavy mineral.
heavy minerals, right? And cool. Well, cool to me.
Stop.
So look right here.
So it's hard to see this, but let's keep going, let's see.
And you can see these rhomboid shapes in the sand.
turn around and look here.
Oh, yeah.
See the rhomboid shapes, diamond shapes? I call those beach diamonds. And it happens because it's called, something called sheet flow. So when water is really skinny and it flows really fast, it forms these. So again, ruining your day at the beach,
Yeah.
you're gonna be at the beach and you're gonna watch the waves break up and pull back down, and you can see these beach diamonds everywhere. And I know what's gonna happen. You're gonna go, oh, beach diamonds. And everybody around you's gonna go, oh, are you kidding me? Okay,
And that's because of sheet flow. And we'll see more of that. Here's, oh, cool.
beach
They're
diamonds.
called beach diamonds, right? And make sure you can see them, because I can't see them, they're too bright. So beach diamonds, they occur because of sheet flow. And here, look at this. If you're looking at the beach here, right, look where all
Okay.
the coarse stuff is. And if you
Why is the coarse stuff and the platy stuff further up the beach? Platy meaning shells, right? Why is it further up the beach?
I'm
So,
sorry,
you
right, in the runnel, you mean? Or-
No, so your scarp, berm, beach face, low tide terrace. Okay, why are shells? And if you're gonna put, who collects shells? Right, you go to the beach step, right where the low tide terrace comes up to the beach face. That's one part, but if you go further up the beach, they're actually up,
Yes.
the shells are up at the berm. Why are the shells further up?
Washed up there in a
Why?
storm,
Why,
storm time.
okay, we have two shapes of sediment. We have platy sediments and rounded or spherical. Why are platy sediments further up the beach?
Because they have the ability to be carried more than a rounded sediment.
Can they sail?
Okay. A
Yeah,
couple things. What's percolation?
So
What is it?
Yeah,
It's the sand, the water being sucked down into the sand, so
Okay.
to speak.
wave breaks on the beach. When the wave breaks on the beach, it pushes stuff up. As the water goes on the beach, what happens to the water? Goes down. How much backwash is there? Less. Why are the platy sediments, why are the shells
They're
further
too
up the
heavy
beach?
for the water to carry back.
Here's the shell. Pushes up, goes down, settles.
next big wave does the same thing.
Exactly right. That's exactly right. Yep. You ever thought about this before? Nope, thank God. Right.
The waves, that are created in the sand, when that runnel is really moving and when the lagoon there is wider, are incredible. They can get huge.
Let's keep going.
go to that, to the beach face, it's coarser here, but these sediments are platy shaped. So how come the platy shaped shells are further up the beach than they are down the beach? Okay, let's keep walking. All right, these are clearly seagull treads, kidding, car tracks. All right, we're walking down and we're walking off the berm, and look at this, there's a decided change in the beach slope because we're walking onto the beach face. And the beach face is defined by the limits of high tide and low tide, right? So if you look down the beach, right, you can see a flat area, right? And the flat goes to a slope to the right. You can see.
All right, here's the profile of the beach. Here's the berm. Here's the last high tide swash. Right? Here's the beach. Actually, the beach face is actually here to here and then going down to the low tide area.
What are the dynamics there when you've got the bay emptying into the ocean?
Have you guys ever been through Indian River Inlet in a boat? That is the most dangerous inlet I've ever worked. And what you guys might not know, you know the new bridge that's over it? In 1986, I did the survey of the old bridge inspection, and I had a diver go in. Did I tell you the story already? And I had a stud, Dave Robinson. He's like a stud diver, never afraid of anything. And he had double tanks on. He went down, he was down for 5 minutes, came up and got into the boat without my help, with 2 tanks on. I said, Dave, what the hell? He goes, Doug, I've never been scared before underwater. I said, what? He goes, my buddy was on the other side of the bridge pylon. Well, wait, my buddy was supposed to be on the other side of the bridge pylon, and I got myself oriented and got up, and there he was. And then I looked up at the bottom of the bridge pylon. The channel was 30 feet below the bridge pylons. The bridge was not being held up by anything for I don't know how. And the bridge was just replaced just a couple years ago, right? Just completed. During that time, the old bridge was not being held up by anything. It was like Monet's Bridge, Giverny, which is held up by both ends. Yeah.
Is that because of the salt, the salinity just ripping right back and forth?
So
through there?
if you've been in there, that channel, there's standing waves in that channel.
Right, they just sit there
Crazy.
in
Right.
one place, like white water.
It's the highest energy inlet that I've ever been in, and that's where I studied. That's what I made my living doing. And they don't know why, but all of a sudden, about in 1984, 85, the channel scoured down 30 feet. So it became a lake that more water was going through there than had been before.
Was there any riprap or something put up that would have created that?
There are jetties, but, and we'll get to that. What's the root of the word jetty? Jet. And jetties are built a certain distance apart to keep the thumb on the water to move it through. When this tidal prism changed and all this water's going through, those jetties are too close together. What do? You pick the rock up, move them?
My dad used to fish out on the north end of the North Jetty and used to scare the living daylights out. He did that until his late 70s. It's
Yeah.
like, if he ever fell in or a wave broke over that, we'd never find him.
Well, the reason that I was brought in that project in the 80s was because a grandfather and his 2 grandsons were lost fishing in that inlet. And when I was doing the survey in the inlet, and one of those standing waves was breaking over our transom, I told the guys I said, we were anchored to take current measures. I said, cut the line. He said, it'll come out of my paycheck. I took my knife and I touched the line and parted it. It was either that or the boat. Okay.
Lighthouse, right? All right, so here we go. Back down the beach, and what you're looking at here, you're looking at the waves. So as these waves come in, oh, look at that offshore. All right, offshore you can see where waves are kind of breaking, right? And then they reform and they break on the beach. So that tells me something that there's a shoal.
Right, so there's a ridge offshore, it gets shallower, and that's why the waves are breaking offshore. And then they reform at the depths and break onshore. So there, you're at the beach and you're looking at 2 sets of waves, and now you know what you're looking at.
What about the beaches in Hawaii where you see big breakers out? Am I getting
Exactly.
ahead?
No, that's exactly right, and we'll get to that in a second.
Offshore, and we'll talk about ridge and runnel systems. All right, now. What do we have here? All right, waves come up, and as you look up and down the beach, let's go down the beach here. And as you're looking down the beach, you can see that the waves break in some parts of the beach,
Waves break
but
in
not
some
in the
part-
others.
How
That's
come?
because rip currents are occurring.
Shape of the bottom. There's a ridge there.
Or rip currents.
Well, see, there's a rip current, but nobody knows what a rip current actually does. Right, you know what it does, right? You're taught when you're caught in a rip current, if you let like the person, what do you tell them to do?
Swim it out.
Decide.
Parallel.
If you don't like the person, come on, you can do it. You can-" Right, so the waves are breaking, where the waves are breaking, right? There's a ridge, right? Because we know that, we're looking offshore, where the waves are breaking, we know it's shallower. Where they're not breaking, it's deeper. And that's where the water is moving offshore.
Right, it's coming back from all the
Right.
wash.
And I'll tell you what a rip current is. What a beautiful day to be. Okay, wave breaks. Run.
Filling waves.
2,000, 3,000, 4,000, next wave breaks. I don't know if this is a good one, but there's a time between wave breaks.
Trying to get the
Wave
peak
crash.
period.
We'll do this. 1,000, 2,000,
Time between breaking
4
waves.
1,000, 5 1,000, 6 1,000, 7 1,000, 8 1,000, 9 1,000.
10 1,000. Right, so there was about 10 seconds between the waves, right? Called the wave period. How is wave period critical for beach erosion?
The rate of erosion.
So if you have a wave period of 10 seconds and a wave period of 20 seconds,
It's a measure of the energy.
Right.
why do beaches erode?
High energy,
What part of the wave, not just wave height, how is wave period important to beach erosion?
it's frequency.
The frequency of water coming out of the beach.
Right.
If you have a wave period during storm where it's 10 seconds, right? You have water being added to the beach every 10 seconds. If you have a wave period of 20 seconds, you have half the amount of waves. Right? So if you're continually having waves coming up the beach and percolating down, the beach is saturated. If the beach is saturated, how does that contribute to erosion?
Look back.
Yeah, it pulls back, you get backwash, right? So the critical parts of the beach for erosion are sediment type, percolation, and wave period. You okay? Everything's okay? Nobody's hurt?
But I do have a question. How does wave period relate to wave height?
It doesn't. Wave period and wave height are two different parameters. Normally, the larger the wave, you can have longer wave periods, but it's not necessarily true. I mean, if you have a 10-second, if you have a 1 meter 10-second wave, you have a 2 meter 20-second wave, you have the same amount of water coming on the beach.
Well, that's what you had there. You had two larger waves that were 10 seconds apart, but 30 little waves broke in between.
Exactly right. Yeah. But those little waves didn't go as far up the beach.
Right.
Are you learning too much?
It's fun.
It's stuff that you hadn't thought of before.
I've just heard people on the beach say every 7th wave is gonna be bigger.
Right.
There's some significance to that.
Is there?
Yeah.
I never knew why.
I mean, it's a statistical thing.
It's not a harmonic.
No, it's not a harmonic. But you can say that because it sounds good.
When you're trying to surf or body surf, I always found that like it was about the third, I would wait for the third wave.
Yeah, every surfer has his statistical mantra.
So you can spend with those. All right, that's the 10-second wave period, and I'll tell you about that. All right. There are different kind of waves. What we're looking at here are spilling waves. That's when the crest just spills over, and then you get plunging waves. See if we can get, there's a plunge wave, and that's the true surf.
Spill over. Spilling waves are waves that just kind of, the crest just tips over.
I'm gonna stop it for now and start it up again.
Yeah, what's next?
Next slide.
Yeah,
All right, it's good. There's nobody around, so I can do this without embarrassing somebody. But notice these fences here.
They're going backwards.
keep going. Yeah, this one, next one. Here we go, this one. We're gonna,
Okay, here we have the breaking waves. Right, I'm at the bottom of the beach, as low as I'm gonna go. Right? And you can
I didn't
see
wanna get
the
wet.
waves are breaking to the right. And now I'm gonna walk up the beach and, all right, walk up the beach. I'm walking up the beach face,
and there's that ridge,
walking up the beach.
and there's the
face.
channel on the other
And
side.
Here we can see darker sands, that's heavy minerals.
See the ripples?
And here, look at this. See the shells here, where the last high tide swash came up here? Why are those shells there? Walking up. Oh, look at that. You didn't see that before.
Sorry, I turned on.
Turn
Can't
sideways.
help anybody. You stop it here.
And look at those.
So everybody do this, no. So
It's like space.
these are the ripples going in this direction, right? And this is that lip, so the waves bust over here and they're in this channel.
Are there grooves like that in the water where the riptide goes through?
Yes. There are, but the ripples that are this shape are facing offshore. So the sand is actually being transported offshore.
And doesn't that then deposit some eventually and become that offshore berm or sandbar?
Yeah.
It kind of creates a cycle.
It does, and also it contributes to the long-term sediment transport of moving that sediment down the beach.
Bed forms. Look at what's going on here. All right, so these are bed forms. So, and I think they're moving right to left, but look what's in the trough. All this shell material, and the crests are between them. So there's a rhythmic pattern to these. I'm gonna change it. Don't get dizzy on me. There's a rhythmic pattern to these bed forms, and that's because of the strength of the water flowing from right to left, and the heavy stuff hangs out in the troughs of these. And what I'm seeing here, all right, you see the heavy minerals, the darker stuff? It's heavy minerals because the specific gravity of those sediments is higher, so it's harder to move. Again, here we have the spillway of the sand at the angle of repose. So the waves are coming up the beach, spilling over and pushing the sand into this runnel system. All right, oh look, a gold doubloon. No, I'm kidding. I just wanted to see if you guys were awake. All right, I'm coming up out of the ridge system, back into the berm, which is where the dry sand is, where you would put your towel, and coming up to the fences and the fences and the grass there. All right, so this is a high-profile barrier island, and you're going to ask me what that means. Okay, I'll go slow. Because there's going to be something in this they're going to see, they're going to go, oh, I'm going to ask you a question. All right? That's it for now.
Thanks for the field.
All right. You're welcome. Was that worthwhile? It's not as good as being there with me, but okay. So, high profile beach, where's the best shell collecting? And why?
Bottom.
Here.
Title zone.
In here. Why is it best up here?
Well, no, low energy there.
The waves break, push the shells up, water percolates down and leaves the shells up here. Oh, I think I can drive now. All right, so in the Hope high profile beach, you gotta do scarp, the berm.
Here's a question for you. Okay, this is a high profile beach.
Yep,
Which then you talk about a low profile beach. Is Ocean City considered a low profile beach?
yes, it is.
Okay.
If you go on Astig and you see, and you walk places where there's a scarp, that's high profile. But normally where development occurs, they wipe out that scarp and build, and those buildings become fodder for the waves. You ever see these at the base of the beach face?
Yes,
Why are they there? What are they doing?
let the water back out.
Where does the water from the beach, when the waves break up the beach, where does the water go?
Percolates in.
Down. And then this is actually the groundwater coming
That's
back
where
out.
it has to come down.
Yeah, the water's gotta come out. This is low tide terrace. This is up in Cape Cod. Actually, the mainland of the mess. And you see these little bed forms, and they're moving towards the beach. They're moving towards the beach. That means this is sand that is naturally replenishing the beach. You don't see large ridges on this though. So ridge and runoff systems, you see the large ridges after a storm, when things are quiet. How come?
Oh, well, sand has been cast up on the beach and created a profile.
So ridge and runoff systems, the ridges are a post-storm phenomenon. During the storm, you have low period waves, short period waves, high waves, and sand gets pulled offshore. During the quiescent times, interstorm periods, the sands get collected by the waves and pushed onshore. Hence, you get ridge and runoff systems. I'll go ridge and runoff systems. Okay. What do you see? See this thing that looks like a ridge? And this is the backside, this is the trough part, and that's a runoff. This is a ridge and runoff system. Here's the thing that baffled my mind. Waves, water breaks onto the beach. And you have an input has to equal the output, otherwise you're gonna flood. Nobody ever thinks that the water's coming on the beach, that water's gotta go out too, you know. Right? Nobody ever thinks about that. So that's why you get rip currents. Rip currents are the exit of the water from the beach system. Right? So the water busts over this. This is a ridge system. Water comes in here and it goes down. See these little channels here? That's where the water leaks back out to the ocean. And those essentially are the formations of where the rip currents will occur.
Are rip currents stronger and or more frequent, prevalent, whatever, at like high tide or low tide or?
Usually at high tide and usually during storms too.
Well, I need to storm
Yeah.
surge, so storm surge and high tide have a similar.
Agreed.
Alright.
Yep. And here is the ridge system, and here is the water just cranking in that direction. And here's the end of that ridge, and that's where it heads out to sea. No swimming between flags, dangerous rip current. All right, and that's at the low tide terrace.
Where's Cure?
Is that out at the outer Cape? No, oh no, Core Beach,
Cure Beach, I don't know where that is. Do you? No idea.
Carolina.
All right, so rip currents. From the shoreline, you can see where they are by looking at the wave. You can see where the water's being pushed offshore. Right, and if you try to, this is good to go swimming in because you get pulled offshore and then you swim to the side and you're okay.
Good for surfing too.
Yeah,
Why
good for,
paddle?
why paddle? Just get me out. So there's a rip current. It's going out. So you can see where they are. A couple things in my past lives. I was an expert witness, for people who didn't know and ran into the water and got to their knee deep and dove in, hit their head on the ridge system, right? 34-year-old suspected spinal injuries and broken arm after diving. This is a case that I was involved with Dave Geffen in California. Anybody been to Santa Monica? So have you been to the beach? The ridge and runoff system there is the most extreme I've ever seen. You have the ridge, I mean, the water gets to 14 feet deep.
Wow.
And then you swim on that and you get to the ridge. It's extreme. And unfortunately, Dave Geffen, he was, put his towel down, right down the beach, dove in and hit his head on an angle.
Because you didn't know it was so close.
He had no idea, and there was no warning. So I was brought in as an expert witness. They were suing the town of Santa Monica for creating this phenomenon, which, you know, it's a reach because you can't sue for natural phenomenon. But they had two groins on either side that might have exacerbated the situation. So there was a chance that it could have been. So they brought me in to survey the beach. And has anybody done expert testimony? Okay, so here I am. See, I'm 31 years old, and I'm hired to do the beach profile, to map it. And I'm brought in to do expert testimony. And Larry Feldman's a lawyer. He happened to have defended Michael Jackson, so he was a highfalutin lawyer. We're walking down the hallway, and I'd never done this before. And as we walk down the hall to do my deposition, he goes, I said, wait, are they gonna have an expert too? And he goes, of course. I mean, I don't know these things. Right? I said, who is it? So he goes through and he goes, Dr. Paul Komar. I said, Jesus Christ. I said, I mean, I used his textbooks to teach, and I was taught with his. I said, what the hell am I going to do? He goes, it's music, play it by ear. So I'm on the witness stand, and I'm giving my testimony about how exaggerated the original rental system was. And and their attorney gets up and says, how old are you? And Larry says, objection, irrelevant. I said, no, it's not. And the judge says, how old are you? I'm 31. He goes, how much field experience could you possibly have? I said, and as a lawyer, you know, never ask a question you don't know the answer to. I said, I have done beach surveys on the East Coast, West Coast, Gulf Coast, and North Coast. And I probably have done, I'm going to guess, 2,000 beach profiles at least. And he goes, and you can say that this is different. I said, this is the most exaggerated original rental system I've ever experienced. I've never seen anything like that. I said, goes, and I started talking, and the guy says, wait, you can't answer it. I asked you a question. So I turned to the judge and I said, can I? He goes, you'll get your turn. So we're in court, and he says, what's your feeling about Dr. Paul Komar? And I said, I was very impressed with him. And he goes, well, let me read your expert test. He goes, a god. You use his textbooks. None better. And I said, but I've changed my view. And the guy says, no, that wasn't the question. Judge, can we strike that, please? And I turned to the judge and I said, but I have something I want to say. He goes, that's your lawyer's job. So, so my lawyer, Larry, came up and he said, do you think Paul Komar is an expert? I said, there's no question. He's an expert on numerical analysis of beaches. I said, he does not have the field experience that I have. And so after this whole thing happened, Paul Komar happened to be very good friends with my PhD advisor at LSU. His name is Doug, Norwegian, and Doug got a phone call from Dr. Komar, and he was livid. He goes, "Who's this Doug Levin?" And Doug said, "Well, he's a student of mine." And Paul says, "Well, he was on a witness stand and he said that he had more experience with beaches than I do." And this was Doug's answer. He goes, "And he has been in the field 1,000 times more than you have, and he has more experience." And Paul said, "Well, I don't think he deserves a PhD." And Doug says, "Well, at this point, if we could get yours back, we would too." All right, so waves, yeah.
What was the result of that trial?
If, what the result of that trial was, it was thrown out because it was felt to be a natural phenomenon, and the town of Santa Monica could not be held accountable for a natural system.
But could he have been held accountable for not having signs warning people about it?
So, and that's a good question. So we had a discussion about font and distancing of signs for rip currents. They were too far apart for him to know where he was, that there was a rip current. But it wasn't the rip current that caused it.
Yeah.
All right,
So do rip currents always form in the same
No.
spot?
they do not.
It'll move.
They actually move laterally. And if you want to take another class with me, we'll talk about edge waves.
Is there any chance that they would move the same direction as the littoral drift?
Not only will they move the same direction, but they'll move down and then they'll reoccupy and move again.
Right.
Yeah. Yep. All right, so waves. Did you know waves have parts? They have, and waves have orbitals, and these orbitals are the circular motion of the wave as it goes in depth. So this is the part of the wave that hits the bottom when it starts to break. And what happens, I don't know what's next. Oh, there you go. So what happens is the deep waves come on shore, the bottom orbitals hit the bottom, and the wave starts to tip over. And where it tips over, it breaks. Wavelength is the time that it takes for the same part of the wave to break. So the time between this wave and this wave is the wave period. You didn't know there were different kinds of waves, did you? It was something that you didn't really care to think about. But there are different kinds of waves. These are spilling waves, and these are the ones you normally see at the beach where the waves come in and start just minding their own business, and they just kind of break, gently, and you have this. These are non-surfing waves.
Everybody goes, uh-huh.
Yeah,
There you go.
this is a plunging wave. So what happens with a plunging wave? Right, spilling waves occur when the offshore area is a little gentle. If it's steep, the waves hit the bottom and they crash, right? There's nothing gentle about it. So if you have a steep slope offshore, you're going to get these plunging waves. You get plunging waves off of Hawaii because the full reef is right there to deep water, right? So you get big waves where it's deep, coming shallow very quickly.
Well, and Hatteras has the same thing.
Yes. Anywhere you see a good surfer break, it's because you have a deeper offshore. I put this up and it's hard to see because it's too big. But you can see that these wave crests are at an angle to the shore. So as the waves break on shore, they're moving sediment along shore. Right, you see this.
Does wave erosion a function of Atlantic Ocean versus the direction of erosion? It's a function of Atlantic Ocean versus Pacific Ocean, Northern Hemisphere versus Southern
Not
Hemisphere?
necessarily, we talk about Coriolis effect.
Yeah.
And not necessarily, because the wave trains are a little bit too regional, and the geology at the coastline can change, can move the longshore center transport in different directions. All right, so this is one of my pet peeves. These are not jetties. These are groins. Jetties. What's the root of the word jetty? Jet. Where do you find jetties?
And inlets.
At inlets. Groins are rock structures that you put along the beach to help, ostensibly, to help with erosion. Tell me what you think it does.
Creates erosion.
So what happens is the long-term center transport is in that direction, right, going that direction, and the sand builds up to the edge of this groin, and then it erodes the other side. So you get
So groin needs a field.
yeah, groin field.
Right, just the.
It could, but the question I have about these groins, what happens if you take them all out? Then the beach settles right in the middle. So did you need the groins? Well, Vito, who sells the rock, puts it in at $10,000 a foot. Yeah. Yeah,
So those groins,
10,000 a foot.
I can remember seeing them on the Jersey Shore when I was a kid a long time ago. And you would even read in maybe some news article that, you know, there was a debate about whether they created or built, and what, so why are we still doing this?
Because we can.
Because he gets 10,000 a foot.
Yeah, somebody.
I mean, here's the jetty, right? And you see that at OC that one side of the jetty gets built up and the other side erodes. Right, so what I know that Ocean City Inlet, they've been doing a sand pump. They've been pumping sand from one side of the beach to the other. I don't know how that's been working.
Once I could build up south of Dewey Beach before Indian River, that's a really nice built-up beach in there.
Yep, and the other side is not. Right, okay. High profile versus low profile beach. In the low profile beach, you don't have a dune scar. It drops right off into lagoon behind it. High profile or low profile?
Oh, wow.
Great place to build a house, huh? Right, so
It's like Route 12 down in that.
this is up in Massachusetts, and they put their houses on pilings, and then waves come along, and then
Take it out.
Yeah.
you can build a new house. For the next hurricane.
Yeah.
You heard about Grand Isle during the last hurricane? Right, this is Grand Isle in 1982. And this is the beach. And you can't see it here, but they have 6-inch septic pipes coming out the back.
Oh, God. Yeah, we lived near the Outer Banks, and they finally made a rule that if you couldn't put a septic tank down, you could not rebuild. But we've seen houses that we rented that are not there anymore.
Okay, so the law, actually, you can't use federal funds to rebuild.
Right.
You can use private funds. And the insurance laws had been that if your house is more than half demolished, you can't rebuild it with federal funds. So let's go up here. This part of, you've been in Massachusetts, Horseneck Beach. So this is a beach erosion study that I was contracted to do. And right in here, 1910, beautiful houses. Here's the beach. 1942, what's missing? The houses, right? But here's my crutch here. See these waves of sediment behind here? That's where the beach has historically washed over and deposited these. And keep your eye on this area right here, this, I call it the rock. 1942, 1980. The beach is still connected to that rock. Here's 1951. What's missing? I'll go back,
All the bench.
1951, you see these structures here?
Boardwalk, whatever.
Well,
It's kind of all.
All the houses are gone. But the beach is still connected to that rock. 1960. 1971,
Starting to build again,
yeah, with what?
trailers.
Trailers, right, 1971. There's the rock, 1980. 1980,
Whoops.
Yeah.
but the rock was still there. Here's the beach. This is the winter. Oh, let me see if I can do this. This is the winter. That's the summer.
Whoa.
Wow.
That's a big difference.
So I'm gonna go back. The rock is still there. The beach is still there.
More houses.
There are more houses there, but periodically, what happens to the houses?
Get a nor'easter that takes them away.
This is a low profile barrier system. There's no scar, there's no bank of sand, right? So when the waves come up, they wash over into it's called the let, and whatever's there becomes washed over stuff. So I was given a talk, actually it was at the town, actually Andy was giving the talk. It was a town meeting, and we went through this whole presentation. The beach isn't eroding. It's the sand is being pulled off during storms and going back on during summer. And this guy gets up and I'm guessing he was probably in the early hundreds. And he goes, "Gentlemen, I have lived here my whole life." And he said this. "I remember when clipper ships used to run between here and here." Okay. We appreciate having that memory, but we've done the historical maps back 100 years, and that hasn't been the case. He goes, "But I remember as a child parking the car and it taking me such a long time to walk to the beach." And I went, "Oh, I got it. The short-legged theory of beach erosion. When you're this big, it makes you have to go anywhere." He goes, "Oh." What did you learn? Oh, question.
A question. How about in Hawaii, the pipeline, and you get these unbelievable
Yeah.
kind of waves,
Yep.
and it's like only a
Perfect.
couple places in the world that they're, what is that formation underneath that makes it only there and not?
Because there, first of all, you're Hawaii, so you've got a large fetch. Fetch is the distance over wind blows that waves can form. So you got the wave train coming in,
Yes.
and you have a steep fore reef. So the waves coming on shore, and the waves are very, very happy, they're deep, and then they hit the shore and they come up and they plunge. Same thing in Australia, has a great wave break. Do you surf?
Yeah, if I can still stand up.
Yeah, so you know about where the surf breaks are. It's deep offshore.
So I'll tell you what I learned, explanation of the runnels and the fact that, how the riptides can be spotted and the tremendous distribution that occurs on the beach.
Grace?
I learned that I wasn't imagining things when I went over the Ocean City Bridge one time, when the water was particularly low, and I said, "It looks like it's all eaten out underneath."
Yep.
And everybody was like, "That's ridiculous, how would the bridge stand up?"
You don't have to take that bridge anymore.
Yeah.
Surprise, surprise.
Well, all the terminology about the shape of the beach and why
And why?
why it's
Hmm?
shaped like that in the different parts of it.
Cool.
My biggest aha is the Indian River Bridge. I used to fish over at the Coast Guard station there,
Yeah,
and I've been back and forth across that bridge a lot of times. And the fact that there was a gap between,
30 feet.
unbelievable. I can't wait to tell my sister, who, my sister lives over there, I can't wait to tell her about that.
Yeah,
We know the bridge was, had to be replaced, but I had no clue.
I mean, I recommend to the Corps of Engineers that they put stone underneath and build it up. Never happened.
I guess I learned a little bit about that sorting that happens
Yeah.
at the, intertidal zone where your larger, what do you call them, shell-like
Yep,
particles,
stuff.
Shelly stuff is all up high and your siltier,
yep.
finer particles are down low.
I learned all the definitions and the break of all the different sections of the
And the
beach.
and the importance of percolation and
Right.
sorting.
Not to buy beachfront property.
We used to say to the kids, we're gonna buy a house 3 blocks back, and by the time we retire, it'll be beachfront.
Well, a buddy of mine owns a house on Grand Isle, and he bought it towards the back, and he's happy he did, because
Yeah,
pretty soon.
it's, right.
Any questions?